The ancient archives of forbidden knowledge, hidden truths they tried to erase. Intro: the books they burned.
What if the most dangerous weapon in history was never a sword, never a crown, never an army, but a book? A scroll hidden in a cave, a tablet buried beneath sand, a manuscript sealed inside a clay jar, a forbidden text copied in secret by candlelight, a library swallowed by fire before the world could read what it contained. Throughout history, empires have burned cities, but the most terrifying fires were not always the ones that destroyed buildings. They were the fires that destroyed memory. Because when a book is burned, something more than paper disappears. A worldview disappears, a language disappears, a map of the heavens disappears, a method of healing disappears, a forbidden philosophy disappears, a way of understanding the soul disappears. And perhaps this is why rulers, priests, conquerors, and institutions have always feared certain kinds of knowledge, not because all hidden knowledge is true, but because knowledge changes the one who receives it. A person who knows nothing is easy to command. A person who remembers nothing is easy to rewrite. A person who has never seen another version of reality may believe the prison is the whole world. But every age has had its hidden archives. Some were carved into stone, some were written on papyrus, some were hidden in monasteries, some were buried in desert caves, some were locked away by kings, some were destroyed by those who feared what they might awaken. Tonight, we enter the ancient archives of forbidden knowledge, not to chase fantasy, but to ask a more disturbing question. How much of human history was not lost by accident, but erased because someone was afraid of what we might become if we remembered? Chapter 1: Why Knowledge Was Feared. To the modern mind, knowledge is information, facts, data, documents, words on a page. But to the ancient world, knowledge was power. Not metaphorical power, real power. To know the movement of the stars was to understand time. To know herbs was to heal the body. To know law was to command society. To know language was to preserve memory. To know ritual was to influence the invisible world. To know philosophy was to question kings. This is why knowledge has always been guarded. In ancient temples, teachings were not given to everyone. They were passed through initiation. The student had to prepare the mind, discipline the body, purify desire, and prove that knowledge would not become vanity, manipulation, or chaos. Because the ancients understood something we have forgotten. Truth without maturity can become dangerous. A secret in the hands of the wise becomes medicine. The same secret in the hands of the ambitious becomes a weapon. This is the first mystery of forbidden knowledge. It was not always hidden because it was evil. Sometimes it was hidden because it was powerful. And sometimes it was hidden because power feared it. There are two kinds of secrecy. The first kind protects wisdom from corruption. The second kind protects authority from being questioned. This difference is everything. A mystery school hides teachings so that the student may be transformed before receiving them. A tyrant hides teachings so the people never transform at all. One protects the sacred, the other protects control. And across history, these two forms of secrecy became tangled together. Sacred knowledge became secret. Secret knowledge became suspicious. Suspicious knowledge became forbidden. Forbidden knowledge became dangerous. Dangerous knowledge became burned. And so the archive became a battlefield. Not a battlefield of swords, a battlefield of memory. Chapter 2: The library that became a wound in human memory. No symbol captures lost knowledge more powerfully than the Library of Alexandria. Whether every legend about it is true or not, its image still haunts the human imagination. A city by the sea, a lighthouse shining over the ancient world, scholars gathering from Egypt, Greece, Persia, India, and beyond, scrolls copied, translated, debated, preserved, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, poetry, geography, sacred texts, strange theories, maps of lands some had never seen. The Library of Alexandria was not merely a building, it was a dream. The dream that human knowledge could be gathered in one place, the dream that wisdom could cross borders, the dream that civilization might remember itself. But the story of Alexandria is also a warning, because libraries do not need to vanish in one dramatic fire to be destroyed. They can be weakened by war, ignored by rulers, abandoned by funding, scattered by politics, forgotten by generations who no longer understand what is inside them. The destruction of knowledge is not always loud. Sometimes it happens slowly. A shelf decays, a language dies, a teacher is silenced, a scroll is not copied, a tradition loses its last living student, and then, without a single flame, an entire world disappears. This is why Alexandria matters, not because we know exactly every scroll that was lost, but because it represents the terrifying fragility of memory. A civilization can build monuments of stone and still lose the invisible architecture of its mind. A pyramid may survive for thousands of years, but one unwritten teaching can die in a single generation. The true tragedy of Alexandria is not only that knowledge was lost, it is that we do not know what we lost, what medicines vanished, what maps, what philosophies, what astronomical observations, what spiritual teachings, what forgotten histories of people whose voices were never copied again. The archive became ash, and humanity was left with a silence, shaped like a question.
Chapter 3: The Texts Hidden in the Desert. But not all archives were destroyed. Some survived by disappearing. In the desert, silence is a guardian. Sand covers what empires forget. Caves protect what cities cannot. Clay jars become tombs for words waiting to be resurrected. This is why some of the greatest manuscript discoveries of the modern age came not from palaces, but from hidden places. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered near the Dead Sea beginning in 1947, opening a window into ancient Jewish religious life and texts from the Hellenistic Roman period. The Nag Hammadi codices were discovered in Egypt in 1945, preserving Gnostic and early Christian writings that revealed spiritual perspectives very different from later Orthodox traditions. These discoveries remind us of something profound. History is not fixed. History is edited. For centuries, people believed they understood the spiritual landscape of the ancient world. Then a jar was opened. A cave was entered. A manuscript was translated. And suddenly, the past became stranger, richer, and more complex than anyone had imagined. This is the power of a hidden archive. It does not only add information, it disrupts certainty. The Nag Hammadi texts, for example, revealed a world of mystical Christianity, where salvation was often described not merely as obedience, but as awakening. Knowledge, or gnosis, was not ordinary information. It was direct insight into the divine nature of the self, the cosmos, and the hidden source beyond appearances. To some, this was sacred revelation. To others, it was dangerous heresy. But the question remains, why are certain spiritual ideas feared? Perhaps because they move authority inward. If the divine spark is within you, then no institution can fully own your relationship with truth. If awakening is direct experience, then belief alone is not enough. If the soul can know, then the soul cannot be controlled as easily. This is why hidden texts often feel dangerous.
They suggest that the human being is not merely a servant of systems. The human being may be a doorway, and every doorway threatens the walls built around it.
Chapter 4: The Burning of the Maya Books. Sometimes forbidden knowledge was not hidden. It was deliberately destroyed. In the 16th century, during the Spanish conquest of the Yucatan, the Franciscan Diego de Landa became infamous for his role in destroying Maya books and religious objects, even though his own writings later became important for understanding Maya culture. This is one of history's darkest ironies. A man destroys a civilization's memory, then becomes one of the sources later scholars must use to reconstruct what was lost. The Maya books were not ordinary books. They were codices, folded manuscripts containing astronomy, ritual knowledge, calendrical systems, mythology, mathematics, and sacred time. To the invader, they appeared as idolatry. To the Maya, they were memory. Imagine a people who knew the rhythms of Venus, who built cities aligned with celestial cycles, who measured time not as empty numbers, but as sacred movement, who saw the cosmos as alive with pattern, omen, and divine intelligence. Then imagine those books placed into fire, not because they were meaningless, but because they meant too much. This is the second great wound of forbidden knowledge. When one civilization conquers another, it does not only take land, it tries to take reality itself. It renames the gods, it breaks the temples, it forbids the language, it mocks the rituals, it burns the books. It teaches the children to be ashamed of their ancestors. And after enough time, the conqueror does not need to destroy the archive anymore. The conquered begin to forget it for them. This is why the destruction of sacred texts is never only about religion. It is about identity. A people without memory becomes easier to reshape. A people cut off from its symbols becomes easier to govern. A people taught that its ancestors were ignorant becomes easier to convert, exploit, or erase. The burning of books is not simply the destruction of paper. It is an attempt to interrupt the soul of a civilization.
Chapter 5: What was so dangerous? So what exactly was forbidden? Was it magic? Was it astrology? Was it medicine? Was it the knowledge of the soul? Was it political truth? Was it the memory of older gods? The answer is yes. But the deeper answer is this. Forbidden knowledge is any knowledge that threatens the reality approved by power. A medicine can be forbidden if it threatens profit. A spiritual teaching can be forbidden if it threatens religious control. A historical record can be forbidden if it exposes conquest. A cosmology can be forbidden if it gives people another way to understand the universe. A philosophy can be forbidden if it teaches people to govern themselves. This is why the archive is dangerous. Not because every hidden text contains supernatural secrets, but because archives preserve alternatives. Alternative histories, alternative gods, alternative sciences, alternative ways of healing, alternative ways of dying, alternative ways of being human. Power wants reality to feel final. The archive proves it was never final. There were always other maps, other languages, other doors. This is why the Hermetic tradition survived, like a flame passed from hand to hand. Hermeticism taught that the universe is not dead matter. It is mind. It is correspondence. It is vibration. It is symbol. It is a living pattern where the above reflects the below and the inner reflects the outer. To a materialist civilization, this sounds strange. To an esoteric civilization, it was obvious. The world was not a machine. It was a text. And the wise person was the one who learned to read it. The stars were letters. The body was a temple. Dreams were messages. Numbers were principles. Symbols were doors. The soul was not a mistake inside matter. The soul was the hidden witness of the cosmos. This is the kind of knowledge that cannot be fully destroyed, because even when books burn, the pattern remains. The sky remains. The body remains. Death remains. Dreams remain. The longing for truth remains. And wherever that longing survives, the archive begins again.
Chapter 6. The Hidden Archive Within. But the deepest archive is not made of paper. It is within the human being. Every culture understood this in its own language. The Egyptians spoke of the heart being weighed. The Greeks spoke of knowing thyself. The Hermeticists spoke of the correspondence between inner and outer worlds. The mystics spoke of the divine spark. The sages spoke of memory hidden beneath the surface mind. What if forbidden knowledge is not only something hidden in lost libraries? What if it is something buried inside consciousness? A memory of what the soul is. A direct relationship with the sacred. A deeper intelligence beneath fear. A capacity for silence, vision, discipline, and transformation. This may be the greatest reason certain teachings were feared. Because the ultimate forbidden knowledge is not a spell. It is not a secret name. It is not a ritual formula. It is the realization that the human being can awaken. Once a person awakens, they become difficult to manipulate. They stop confusing noise with truth. They stop worshiping power simply because it is loud. They stop measuring their worth by the approval of the crowd. They begin to question the stories handed to them. They begin to see patterns. They begin to remember that the soul was not born to sleep. This is why all true ancient wisdom leads inward. The archive outside points to the archive within. A sacred text is only a finger pointing at the moon. A symbol is only a doorway. A ritual is only a map. The real temple must be entered in consciousness. And this is where forbidden knowledge becomes practical. Ask yourself, what knowledge have I been taught to fear? What part of my own soul have I been told to silence? What ancestral memory, intuition, or inner discipline have I abandoned because the modern world called it useless? What if the archive was never fully erased? What if it was waiting beneath distraction, beneath noise, beneath fear, beneath the identity you were given? The ancient archives are not only buried in deserts, they are buried in us. Chapter 7. How to reclaim forbidden knowledge safely. But there is a warning. Not all hidden knowledge is wisdom. Not every forbidden book is sacred. Not every secret is true. The hunger for hidden truth can awaken the soul, or it can trap the mind in paranoia. This is why discernment is essential. The true seeker does not believe everything. The true seeker investigates, compares, studies, questions, tests, and most importantly, transforms. If knowledge makes you arrogant, it has not become wisdom. If knowledge makes you cruel, it has not become wisdom. If knowledge makes you obsessed with superiority, it has not become wisdom. If knowledge disconnects you from compassion, humility, and reality, it has become poison. The ancient initiates understood this. They did not measure wisdom by how many secrets someone possessed. They measured it by what kind of person the knowledge produced. So how do we reclaim ancient knowledge without being consumed by fantasy? First, study the symbols. Learn how ancient people used stars, numbers, animals, temples, myths, and rituals to speak about inner realities. Second, study history. Do not accept every claim because it sounds mysterious.
The true mystery does not fear evidence. Third, practice silence. The archive cannot speak to a mind that is always running. Fourth, watch your life. Ancient wisdom is not meant to decorate the mind. It is meant to change the way you act, speak, love, suffer, and choose. Fifth, protect humility. The more you learn, the more you should realize how much has been lost. The seeker who says, "I know everything," has already closed the archive. The seeker who says, "Show me what I have not yet understood," is still worthy of the key. Forbidden knowledge is not for those who want power over others. It is for those who are ready to take responsibility for themselves.
Conclusion. The archive they could not erase. They burned books. They buried scrolls. They shattered temples. They silenced teachers. They called old gods demons. They called ancient sciences superstition. They called direct knowing heresy. They tried to erase the maps. And yet, the hunger remained. The questions remained. Who are we? Where did we come from? What is the soul? What happens after death? Why do the stars move in patterns? Why do symbols repeat across civilizations? Why does the human heart keep reaching for something beyond the visible world? This is why the ancient archives can never be fully destroyed. Because they do not live only in stone chambers or forgotten libraries. They live in every person who asks forbidden questions. They live in every seeker who refuses to let the modern world reduce the soul to a machine.
They live in every dream, every symbol, every sacred text, every whispered teaching passed from one generation to another. The archive survives wherever memory becomes fire. And perhaps the greatest hidden truth is this: they did not fear the books. They feared what the books might awaken. Because a book can be burned, a library can be destroyed, a language can be forbidden. But once the soul remembers that it was born to seek truth, no empire can fully erase it. So if you ever feel drawn to ancient wisdom, lost texts, forbidden teachings, and buried mysteries, do not treat that hunger as an accident. It may be memory calling. It may be the archive within you beginning to open. And the question is no longer, what did they try to hide? The deeper question is, what are you finally ready to remember?